Chetan, let me come to you first. I know you've been tweeting all day on your concerns on the state of the economy, but I want you to reflect on a tweet by Anand Mahindra. And Anand Mahindra says, ironic that we have controls on capital on Independence Day feels like the 1980s. Well, the silver lining is that I feel young again. How would you reflect on what are your comments on that rather telling remark?
Yeah, we have many such ironic things. We even have a dry day, which means you can't get a drink on Independence Day. But we do things like that. But seriously though, it is quite a serious issue. And what has happened today, the big collapse in the Sensex is, investors have already been seeing bad data, economic data coming month after month after month. But today they, I think, have reacted to what the solution in the mind of the government is, or the central banker in this case, where he thought bringing capital controls will be a smart idea. Now, worldwide, and I say this less as an author, but I have worked in Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank earlier in Hong Kong and seen the Asian crisis. Capital controls, this is like a four-letter word for investors. They just hate it. And the idea of making that 200,000, 75,000 is going to make no meaningful difference, but it sends such a bad signal. It's something like people are running away in a fire, and instead of calling the fire brigade, you decide to stop people from running, let's shut the doors. And it's that kind of a mindset which has made investors believe that not only are things bad, there is no light at the end of the tunnel here. It is very expensive.
Yeah, it's a last-ditch measure
to get a return.
It's a last-ditch measure that also
measure,
very controversial.
It backfired.
Salman Soz, countries which have done this have typically had an external debt to GDP ratio of over 100%. India's GDP to debt ratio is at 21%. Controlling capital at this stage, is it not an indicator of absolute panic on the part of the government?
No, let me first, we have to talk about these kinds of days in some context. I know it was a bad day on the stock market, but let's first look at the global context. India is no longer that country which is not connected to the rest of the world. But if you look at the fundamentals of the Indian economy, I know we have many challenges. We have inflationary challenges, we have CAD, current account deficit challenges. But India is actually outperforming most major economies and is expected to grow by 6% or so this year compared to the global average.
Precisely, which is exactly why, Salman, a lot of people would say that this was completely unnecessary. This was hitting the panic button. Go ahead, Salman. I won't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that is exactly right. We should not be in panic mode. I think people are in panic mode for no reason. I mean, there are some reasons to worry about it, but I don't think there's this kind of crisis proportion. Next year, actually, the IMF projects that China's growth compared to this year is going to decline a little bit, whereas India's growth compared to this year is actually going to go up. And that means we're actually going to catch up, play a little catch up with China. Now, if you look at Europe, for instance, Europe is just technically out of recession right now. What happens in Europe? What happens in the US? What happens in Japan and other countries? You're obviously going to face some real challenges in India. We're connected to them. But the kinds of capital outflows that you're seeing right now, you see these kinds of things happening in emerging economies as well, particularly because of quantitative easing.
Basically, what you're saying is that these capital controls were inevitable and that you welcome them. Right? You say that it's essential.
No. Let me just say that this is a short-term measure. I don't think investors view India as a country that they cannot do business with. The fundamentals of this country, a huge middle class. It's a very, very young country. The demographics are in our favor as opposed to China.
Okay, let me just democracy. Siddharth Nath Singh
democracy.
To reply.
Just one final thing.
Yes, Salman.
Just one final thing. Small little thing. Democracy may not, out here domestically, we may not think of democracy as a big deal, but for foreign, investors, that's a huge deal. So I think there are a lot of good things. Yes, we have challenges, but, we can overcome them.
Siddharth Nath Singh, he says that capital controls are a short-term measure. No one welcomes them. It was inevitable. It had to be done at this stage. What does the BJP feel about this decision taken by the government?
Vishnu, I think as a student of economy, I'm actually tired of hearing an argument that Indian economy, the fall of the Indian economy is related only and only to what is happening in the European or the global market. I think fundamentally it is wrong.
in large measure.
We do.
No.
Please. You should also allow me to speak. Okay. It is
Sure,
not
sure.
at large. It is, yes, it is. It does get affected, but then we should not be forgetting that we do have an investment climate which is domestically driven also, and we have industries and business houses who are investing at large outside India, primarily because they don't find an investment climate in the India.
Right.
They have a surplus on their balance sheet which is about 9 lakh crore, and they refuse to take off. And then we have projects which are worth about 7 lakh crores which are stuck up. Then they're primarily because of the government not pushing it. There are environmental, land acquisition, there are so many other
Sure.
problems.